Welcome back. You're tuned into Business Lunch here on CNBC TV 18. Well, as India continues to battle against COVID-19 pandemic, the World Bank approves its largest ever health sector support to India, an emergency fund of more than $1 billion. Well, we spoke to the director of World Bank to understand the economic impact on India versus the other developing countries. Let's hear him out.
So the work on the health side, the work on the social protection side, is to ensure that this downward trend is arrested and stabilized before we can really engage in terms of the stimulus. You know, I look around the world. You have United States putting in 10% of its GDP from the state. You have European countries putting in 5%, if not more. I'm looking at the economic context of India, and I'm looking at its debt structure, which is interesting. It is a debt structure that's manageable. It's a debt structure that is local, and it's really not on short-term debt. My sense is India can put in somewhere between 3 to 5% of its GDP in these three buckets: health, social protection, stabilizing the economy, and the stimulus. And I think that that's exactly the direction that government is moving, and it's going to be extremely important to not only bring back the growth, but in between protect the citizens of the country.
There have been measures that have been announced by the Finance Ministry, by the RBI. How do you see those measures, and what needs to be done once this lockdown period is lifted after the 15th of April?
Those measures are very welcome and very timely, and they reflect many of the measures that around the world governments are beginning to take. You know, unfortunately, there isn't a blueprint. We are in uncharted territory, and we're having to build the blueprint as we go. So from government's perspective, the monetary interventions, the lines of credit to small and medium enterprise, the social protection system, the expenditure on health are exactly in the right direction. What we're working with government is discovering where the gaps are. So in the social protection system, for example, more can be done using India's strength of IT, its Jan Dhans, its public distribution system to deal with the unorganized workers, to deal with the informal sector, deal with the migrant workers. These are things that we're working with government, and we hope in the next intervention that's where we'll be. But in terms of the economic stimulus, I see quite a bit of support going to small and medium enterprise, not only just to stabilize them, but to really get them into the markets and moving. Then there will be a period where things such as credit enhancement will be needed to bring in institutional finance into economic activities.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump's tweets normally, move the equity markets, but in the last 24 hours odd, his tweet has moved the commodity markets, particularly crude oil prices. Manisha Gupta joins us to tell us what's going on there. Manisha.
Oh, well, yes, Nigel, it moved the crude prices by nearly 40% as a knee-jerk reaction. Of course, since then, the markets are waiting or looking at other developments and other statements coming in from the producers as well. So U.S. President said that he has spoken to Russia and that Russia and Saudi Arabia will have a conversation and agree to cut output going forward from here. The number that he came out was 10 to 15 million barrels. So now the markets really are looking at more details emerging out of this. The latest that we have is that the OPEC has called for a virtual meeting on Monday, that is the April of 6th. And what countries are going to be a part of this there is no clarity on that as yet. But Saudi Arabia yesterday did say that they are looking forward to having US, Mexico, Canada and other G20 countries to be a part of this as well, because only OPEC and Russia perhaps will not be able to cut output as much as the markets require right now. So it's going to be quite interesting on how Monday turns up. In the meanwhile, we also have Russia saying that they will be a part of this meeting. The US also is meeting the US executives in the day-to-day. So there could be some emergence on whether or not they would come out of their comfort zone and be a part of this coordinated crude output cut, which the markets really seem to be taking into the prices right now. So when you look at this week itself, after nearly 25% of gains yesterday, we are up by nearly 32% for the crude prices in this week. This is the first time or the first week ever that you have seen those kind of gains coming in. It has been a record one-day gain that we saw into the markets yesterday, and some more build up on your screens is what you can see in case of crude, almost nudging $32 for the Brent. Remember, we have seen $24 of a low in the previous month. So from those kind of lows, those are very strong gains coming in on your screens.
Absolutely. All right. So Manisha is bringing us good news. At least Brent crude prices trading well in the green. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up on Business Lunch. You stay with us. Mid-Cap Radar comes up next.